the Scotch-Irish were suffering religious persecution, rising rents, and bad harvests. Tens of thousands moved on to a second migration to the New World. This hybrid culture took root in the southern mountain wilderness of Appalachia.
Oh, but thank the Lord, good health we found. We've all got here both safe and sound, and here in peace, so we hope to be with the Indian tribes in old Tennessee.
The Scots-Irish were very quick to be among the first settlers who actually made their permanent home in the mountains. Those mountains that had the funny smoky look in the morning.
When we were got up to the top of the mountain and set down very weary, we saw very high mountains lying to the north and south as far as we could discern. It was a pleasing, though dreadful sight, to see mountains and hills as if piled one upon the other. Robert Fallam, 1671.
Now I've nothing strange ought to write to you. Well, the preaching's scarce, oh, and religion too. But we've better land and a fertile soil. We've got honey, milk, we've corn and oil.
Once they made their permanent home in the mountains, they by no means were the only ones that settled in there, but they were the most colorful, most influential.
You had the other mix of the Germans who came here. And the Germans are known for their orderliness and, their rules for everything and building really staunch barns out of material that will last.
The Scotch-Irish, on the other hand, tended to be more footloose and fancy-free. And the Scotch-Irish also were more hot-tempered than the Germans. And so when the Indians attacked, you wanted Scotch-Irish there because they were terrific fighters. But when the Indians weren't there, the Germans were just as happy not to have the Scotch-Irish around.
It was said at the time that whereas the English, when they got to America, would build a church, the Germans would build a barn, but the Scotch-Irish would build a whiskey still.
It's when I'm dead and in my grave, no more corn liquor will I crave. Upon my tombstone I want it wrote, 10,000 gallons went down my throat.
Whiskey making was only one of the skills that the frontier migrants brought from the Old World. With traditional crafts like quilting, pottery, and metalwork, they furnished their homes and cooked their meals as they always had. But the tradition closest to their hearts was music.
Music was especially important. It gave them comfort. It was something that they could do themselves. They could sing, they could play their fiddles and have a dance, and invite the neighbors over.
The most important instrument the Scotch-Irish brought with them was the fiddle. Small, portable, and plaintive. The old fiddle tunes were greatly beloved and passed along through the generations.
Those were the kind of songs that Thomas Jefferson probably played his fiddle by. And they were handed down, the reels and the jigs and the airs, and beautiful songs.
I was playing with the Chieftains one day, and I was playing this bowing technique, and Sean Keane from the group said, "Where did you learn that?" And I said, "From an old man in eastern Kentucky." He said, "That's the way they play in Donegal." And I was so flipped out, to realize that that had come over here centuries ago.
Along with fiddle music, many well-loved ballads made the long, hard trip across the ocean.
In Scotland I was born and bred. In Scotland I was dwelling. I fell in love with a pretty fair maid, and her name was Barbara Allen.
As people packed up to make the journey to the New World, they had to leave almost everything behind. There wasn't enough room on the ship for anything, but there was enough room on that ship to memorize a few dozen songs.
Singing those songs or playing those tunes made them feel at home. You know, they had brought that part of their culture with them.
Oh, mother, go dig my grave. Go dig it long and narrow. Sweet William died for me today. I'll die for him tomorrow.
The ballads, of course, are basically narrative songs or story songs. Many of them go back in England as far back as the days of Shakespeare.
You know, it comes from the troubadours in England, like 14th, 15th, 16th century. They traveled the country. They would stop at a farmhouse. They would write a song for the person who lived there. That's what they had to say about the troubadour. He always paid his way. They didn't say that he paid his way with a song, but he did for a warm bed and breakfast in the morning.
We still kind of do that.
We do, don't we?
Those songs didn't die off in the mountains. They stayed in the mountains.
Many of these songs dealt with the same kind of archetypal themes that soap operas today deal with: deception, betrayal, murder, and true love. Barbara Allen is the classic example.
If your name be Barbara Allen.
Later on, we began to get songs that dealt with topical subjects, especially as Americans began to take hold of the models of the old songs and create new songs around them.
That's the only way you passed it down, was to write about it. If anything happened, if someone got killed, there would be a song wrote about it. This man got this girl pregnant, and it's a true song. He was going to marry her, or he told her he was going to marry her. That was what the story was about. And they went out walking on a Sunday afternoon, and he threw her in the river, the Ohio River.
I asked my love to take a walk, just to walk a little ways. And as we walk, oh, maybe talk all about our wedding day.
Americans tended to change the songs. If you're going to have fun singing a good ballad, you got to learn something from it. So on many American songs, you have tied onto the end of the ballad a moral.
Down by the banks of the Ohio.
Banks of the Ohio. The man takes the woman down to the banks of the Ohio and pushes her in to drown, and I watched her as she floated down. Well, he's ultimately apprehended, but you know, that's pretty direct.
And only say that you'll be mine in no other's arms inclined, down beside where the waters go, down by the banks of the Ohio.
It's one of those songs that has about 100 verses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he kills her, right?
And killed her.
Killed her.
Plunged his knife into her breast.
Threw her in the river.
Took her by her little hand, let her
her down where the water's bound. There I threw her in to drown, washed her as she floated down. Darling, say.
It's a hard thing to put into words. I think partly because there are all these isolated areas, different hollers in the mountains where people got together and made music for themselves. I think that other parts of the country tends to get diluted in different ways, and some of the mountains, I think, held some tradition in a way. I just always imagine in my mind when I hear this music, I think about the journey that the musical style took and how it got changed in the mountains. I think about the time travel of that music, and it's beautiful stuff.
The same rugged mountains that held and nurtured music and culture also marked the western boundary of colonial America. These settlers who had come from the borderlands of England were living again on the edge of two worlds. But the rich land beyond the hills was bound to call to the adventurous pioneer.
We're going west to Kentucky, down the road through Moccasin Gap, down the wilderness road, the Duck Road, the old Reedy Creek Road, the road down Troublesome Road through Moccasin Gap.
There was a time when going way out west meant going out to Kentucky, the dark and bloody ground, as the Indians called it.
In 1769, a backcountry explorer forged his way across the Alleghenies. After traveling dark wilderness trails for 5 weeks, he and his men came upon a most remarkable sight.
I had gained the summit of a commanding ridge, and looking round with astonishing delight, beheld the ample plains, the beauteous tracts below. Daniel Boone.
Boone could see that the territory was ripe for farming, and 6 years later he established a settlement in Kentucky. He was flatly defying British orders to stay east of the Alleghenies and avoid the French, who held lands to the west. The English weren't the only ones who resisted westward expansion. For the Cherokee, keeping the colonists east of the Alleghenies was a matter of survival.
Whole Indian nations have melted away like snowballs in the sun before the white man's advance. We had hoped that the white man would not be willing to travel beyond the mountains. Now, that hope is gone.